Hey guys, Becca and Kristen here, and we're going to talk about an interesting, I don't know, case?
Yeah.
Not really a case, but just an interesting topic and information about strangles and handling it, and just a weird little situation here, so...
Do you want to go ahead and read it? Or
yeah, I'll read it off of a page on Facebook, and I'm going to keep everything anon for protection, but anyone who has dealt with strangles, have you ever had a vet tell you not to quarantine sick ones? No testing needs to be done, that it's better for them to stay outside with the rest of the horses and let it run through your whole barn because there's not much you can do to stop it. Edited to add, I am specifically asking if anyone has ever known veterinarians to suggest this approach when the barn is shared by more than one business and both of those businesses travel to shows as part of their services to clients. I'm trying to make sense of someone's actions and I can't, so I wanted to see if there's any way they're not lying. And any way they're not lying. So I'm assuming, what I'm extrapolating from this is some professional, is saying that they're not testing or having to quarantine their horses based off of their vet. And I would call BS on that.
Yeah, me too. So we just went through strangles at our barn this past year. We do have some other videos on that as well. And we have had multiple vets that came through our property, and they all told us to quarantine, to do sections.
And quarantine can be a little bit different. So, we quarantined all of the sick areas, anything that, they did not leave the pens or anything else. But then we had an area where the horses could leave their pens, but not their area, right? And then we had our green zone where the horses could leave the pens. We could go to our outdoor arena. We could ride. We could work them in this area. And we have, the lower barn and the upper barn, and we separated those areas. The horses,
I called them islands.
And the horses all down there were all good. They just stayed down there. And we had an arena down there, fortunately, so people that had their horses there could ride and do that.
Now we did have it to where if they did ride, they rode one horse at a time, so they weren't blowing onto another horse. We weren't using cross ties, communicable areas. People were keeping tack in their car, that type of stuff too.
And changing in between horses handling.
Yes.
We did temperature checks twice daily for all our horses. We all cleaned our own stalls and put it to the outside so that the cleaners could just pick the stuff up, but they didn't have to go from stall to stall or horse to horse. We have pastures too, and so obviously those horses, we're not going to separate them, and that would just be chaotic, and really it would just spread things more. So in that sense, they could potentially be talking about not necessarily quarantining already pastured horses or already ones that are nearby, because then you're running the risk of spreading it to someone else. But to me, it almost sounds like the person is trying to keep going to shows and stuff, which is gonna
it's awful. We had that around here where we had some other barns get it, and they weren't telling people that they had it. They were still having farriers in. They were still trying to have veterinarians in. And that's just dangerous and silly and honestly selfish. I understand that there is a socioeconomic portion of this. And I mean, I'm still recovering from it, to be honest. We were closed for a long time, basically for lessons, training. But I will tell you that we quarantined. There's a lot of research that says quarantining works. If you go to UC Davis, they have their website. They have quarantining guidelines. I really recommend that you follow those. The AAEP as well, too.
And Kristen was on top of it right away. We didn't even know it was strangles initially. We had some horses come up with fevers a couple weeks prior, and then it was fine. Everything's fine. And then we had more fevers, and we're like... And so you had gotten disinfectants and started spraying. We started just biosecurity right away. And that's one of the other things too.
And we had a lot of negative tests in the beginning.
Yeah. And that's one of the things is you got to test. And one of the things too is you don't know that it's strangles until you get that pus.
Yeah. And so we did nasal swab tests. They came back negative. But this is not something to mess around with. Horses die from this. I had horses that were hospitalized for it. They actually never tested positive, but, one of the other horses did finally when he got drainage. And I just...
So when I say had full-blown
strangles. Yeah. I feel like somebody's trying to protect their business at the cost of the animals.
Mm-hmm.
And
other people in their animals.
And most,
because, it is highly contagious and it spreads really easily. And
I would be so mad if I was at a barn that didn't take this seriously, mm-hmm. and my horse died, or I had, which I've had $10,000 vet bills because my horse was in a healthy part of the barn and then became unhealthy because other people just didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Or somebody brought their sick horse to a show and I was
mm-hmm.
there and my horse got sick, and then because that's what happened too with the EHV1
mm-hmm.
recently.
Yeah.
Right? Is that some people took their sick horses to a show. Now I can't say necessarily that they knew their horses were sick, but it is what happened mm-hmm. is that the sick horses went to a show, it started spreading, and it was a huge show. Mm-hmm. There's so many people from all over that it just, and it spreads like a wildfire in that way because it was such a huge show.
And so our strangles case was kind of interesting too, because we hadn't had a horse come or go from our property for a long time, mm-hmm. but we did learn that horses can harbor it.
Yep.
And it is a reportable virus.
Yep.
So it was reported to the state veterinarian. They do keep track, at least in the state of Nevada, of the strangles cases. That tells you how serious it is. There is a vaccine for it. There's some veterinarians will say, go for it, do the vaccine. Some veterinarians don't. I've just never met a vet that has said what they are saying here. But
so the question is, because it sounds like this person is questioning whether or not a vet has actually said that. And that's what I'm thinking is either the person who has claimed that this vet is saying, like, you don't need to test and you don't need to quarantine, either not a good vet.
Yeah.
And maybe want to report them to the board or whatever it would
mm-hmm.
be for them. Or the person is lying.
Yeah.
To save their own skin.
And you kind of wonder too, like, if she's suspicioning she's lying, there might have been other lies in the past. It's your reputation, right, is cumulative. So if you've been caught in other lies before, sometimes you kind of look at a person and go, is this a reliable source? But I will tell you what we did at our barn is we do have multiple trainers at our barn. We do have multiple businesses at our barn, but we made pretty much one vet in control of everything. And I felt very, very fortunate that everybody was willing to get on board with that. Even though maybe she wasn't their vet, I felt it was very important that everybody worked together. Yes, people could take their horses to their own vet, but then their own vet still had to report to her and say, hey, just so you know, this is what I just saw in this other horse. Can you, so you need to add this to the list of what's going on at Sheridan Creek, because she was the person that I was reporting to about when I could open things back up, how I can do it, what is the decision making. So she needed all of the factors. And so it sounds as though you might have a vet here that nobody else is really able to talk to that's making the decisions. And that's really not all right either. So you need to be able to say that this vet, everybody can talk to on the property. So, if you have a question, what's that vet's phone number? How can I figure out why they're having this decision-making process? Because it affects my animal as well. And they are now in control of this very, very, very contagious virus. I mean, we had foot baths. We had, that we were spraying everything with hand sprayers down. We were just
people with Clorox wipes.
Yeah, Clorox wipes, everything we touched, the ground, because it lives in the ground. Mm-hmm. In water, it can live for 7 to 14 days. Yeah. We got very lucky. Ours was during the summer. So sunlight kills it really well. So you would come to if anybody drove into our place, which they didn't, It looked like we were having a yard sale because we had the stuff
just outside.
Oh, the stuff.
I unfortunately had my client who owns a grooming business and everything else, and former boarder here too. She donated a giant container of rescue, which is we do have a video on it too if you want to learn more about it, but it's a disinfectant that is high quality vet grade, and it was really nice.
It was amazing that she did that because stuff is expensive, but it's worth having on hand.
And we used it all.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, through the entire thing, it lasted us for a really long time, but we used it all and we kept things up and we just sprayed the snot out of everything. And then even while we're still dealing with everything, we had a partial quarantine where we started letting some people come in for lessons on the
that's not haul-in horses, just so you know. That's
we didn't haul in anybody.
People coming in to ride lesson horses.
Lesson horses or do their own horses, and then we could have 2 horses at a time in the arena if they were. And
it took us months to open up our cross ties. That was the last thing we opened up, because to me that's like the kitchen sink. Horses,
especially the inside ones, because there's no sunlight.
So I call BS on this.
I would be highly suspicious of any vet that would suggest that, because I would assume that could cause them to lose their license. Yeah,
and because it's not standard protocol.
And I'd have to ask our vets here and find out too if I would assume it's the same in every state that it is a reportable disease. That would be my guess. But I'd have to double check and ask on that. But I would be highly suspicious of any vet for that. So I think that person's covering something up.
Yeah, me too. So let us know your thoughts and drop it in the comments. And thanks so much for joining us.